Now, not too many people know this.
Sorry, Larry, I'm going to have to get you to...
Not come forward.
Yeah, just because the focus is so far.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, not too many people know this, but Shelley Winters was identical twins. One good and one evil, just like Maria Montez in Cobra Woman. The good one we called Shelley New York Winters, and the evil one was Shelley Hollywood Winters. And I had occasion to come in contact with both. So let's start with the good and work our way down to the bad, because I'm out for blood. In December 1955, it was Actors Fund Week. I saw A Hatful of Rain at the Lyceum Theater starring Shelley, Ben Gazzara, and Anthony Franciosa. And as was my wont in those days, after the play, I usually would kind of try to scoot around the stage door, not for autographs, I didn't do that as an adult, but I just kind of, for some reason, like to see the actors come out, you know, and I did that a lot. Well, this one night, I scooted around, and Shelley came out with Anthony Franciosa. They were having an affair at the time, finally got married. That's another story. But there was this young guy next to me with a camera, and he asked me if I would take my picture, his picture with Shelley and Anthony Franciosa. And I said, well, sure. So he gave me the camera, and he went over and asked, and they said that was fine. And so now I don't know if you remember back then, the cameras in those days, the flash cameras, they had, the flash thing was a separate attachment that you had to put into the camera, and it had a reflector, and you had a bulb that you put into the socket, and you only got one shot. Once it burned, you then popped a little button, and out came the used bulb, and you put in a new one. So they posed, and I clicked, well, nothing. Shelley Winters walked over to me and said, let me have it. And she took the camera and she popped out the bulb, and she leaned down and scratched it on the sidewalk, licked it with her tongue and stuck it back in the socket and said, now try it. Click, pop, went, all's well. And away went the happy couple. Shelley New York Winters seemed real nice, I thought. She would be fun to work with. Flash forward to Warner Brothers, Hollywood. Well, it really was Burbank, but this is my story. So anyway, I had heard she was a guest on Hotel, and I'd heard for a long time stories about the passing of the really good twin who did nice things for people and smiled a lot, and the rise of the evil twin who shouted and threw things and whined a lot. Well, my time to meet Shelley Hollywood Winters had arrived. At first, she wasn't so bad, except for the whining a lot part. But she did slow things up a lot, because, you know, she never would be ready to shoot until she had this little portable tape recorder, and she always had to listen to Betty Buckley sing Memories from Cats to get her in the mood before she was ready to shoot. Well, by the end of the first day, everybody, and I mean everybody, was going nuts listening to Betty sing. Well, we put up with it. We put up with it because she was, after all, a guest star. And besides, I don't think anybody wanted to tangle with Shelley Hollywood Winters, and with good cause, because she was rude, loud, selfish, and a royal pain in the ass. But as I say, we put up with it. But then came Friday. We spent all day on one set, very small, with all of the guest artists and most of the regular cast shooting this scene. And it took us a long time to get the shot, what with Betty Buckley singing and her whining. We finally got the master after several shots. Thank you very much, Shelley. Now, you know, the master is where they shoot the whole scene at once, and then they break it up and go in and do close-ups and all this, and they fit it all together. Well, in the show was the wonderful actor named Lonnie Chapman. He was one of the guests. And in the master, Shelley had been over here, and Lonnie had been over here. Well, when they started to do the close-ups, Shelley said, "Lonnie, why don't you come over here and stand by me?" Oh, that voice. And Lonnie Chapman said, "Shelley, I don't want to come over and stand by you." I think he could have gone a few rounds with her, I'll bet. Well, around 5 o'clock, we heard that dinner had been ordered. Well, now, because it was obvious we were not going to finish the day's work by 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, Shelley. Well, we knew on Friday when they ordered dinner that we were going to be there until 11 or 12 o'clock at night until golden time kicked in. So when we broke for dinner, I was walking Ann Baxter to her motor home, and Ann just looked at me and said, "Oh, why doesn't she just get on with it? I just want to get this done and go home." Something which was, I'm sure, seconded by all. I actually sat next to Hollywood Winters at dinner. She didn't say much. Thank God. Oh, that voice could cut through glass. She left the table fairly early, and I thought, she's going to her dressing room to meet an old friend, Johnny Walker. Her return to the makeup room turned into a pouting fit, and that turned into a shouting fit. And then we returned to the cramped set where the evil twin was really let loose. She demanded that some actor was stepping on her lines, and she was not going to continue until this was stopped. Well, they stopped shooting, and we were asked to leave the set, and some producers came on and talked to Shelley. And there's still a lot of shouting that we heard about how the studio was out to get her, and none of the cast or the crew had any respect for her, and she demanded respect. Oh, well, we heard it everywhere, you know, that voice. Well, anyway, we managed to get back to doing some shooting when the evil twin was suddenly let out of her cage in full force. She wheeled on this actor playing her son, and he had a beer bottle. It was his prop. He'd had it all day long. And she took this beer bottle out of his hand, and she looked at him, and she said, "You goddamn rotten, lousy fucking actor. How dare you bring a beer onto my set?" And then she threw the bottle, not at the wall, through the wall. Well, we were asked to leave and clear the set. Producers came on. Ann Baxter and I headed toward the coffee station where the line producer was hiding out. I guess he figured, you know, what was going on there was above his pay grade. He'd let them deal with it. But he finally said, "Isn't it sad what's happened to her?" And Ann Baxter said, "Sad my foot. She wants you to be so sick of her that you will get all of her scenes filmed tonight, and she will not have to come back on Monday." Prophecy fulfilled. The evil twin scenes were filmed all that night. She did not come back on Monday. I played Shelley Winters off camera to the other actors, and one poor actor had an immensely dramatic breakdown scene on his knees that he had to do to me. Well, late in the evening on that Friday, when the evil twin had finally been pushed back into her cage, we were taking a break, and we were on the hallway sets of the hotel. They had little sofas there, and she was sitting over there, and I was over here, and she had her tape playing. Oh, God. Well, she finally turned that off, and she looked at me, and she said, "Larry, did I yell at you?" And I said, "No, Shelley, I'm probably the only one you didn't yell at." Well, the evil twin is gone now, and I can only hope that she spends all eternity handcuffed to Jerry Falwell. Now there is a footnote to this story. Back in the 60s, when I was teaching at Texas Tech at Lubbock, Texas, I used to have the actors who were performing at the Hayloft Dinner Theater, especially those from out of town, come to my apartment or house or wherever I was living after a performance, and I would have drinks and some food, and we'd sit and talk theater. And I thought it was, you know, it kept them from being so isolated because they all lived at the theater. And I knew what that was like. So I had these people over one night, I don't remember the show, and we were having a good time, we were talking, and I started telling the story about Shelley taking the light bulb, the flash bulb, out and scraping it and putting it back in. And there was this actor sitting on the sofa, young man. As I kept telling this story, his eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger. And he said, "That was me. You took that picture. That was my camera. That was me." What are the odds?